Hi, I'd like to check in for a flight.
Are you a member of the Foxpresso Coffee Club?
Ha! Why would anyone want to join that? Of course not.
Oh, what a pity.
If
you're not in the Foxpresso Coffee Club, you might as well be grounded. Also, special thanks to Lufus Raccoon, and extra special thanks to Yorick. For over 30 years, furry cons have been the place to meet other like-minded animal people. After all, they're a lot of fun and you know what to expect. You basically spend a weekend in a hotel, dress up in a fursuit, go shop for furry goods, and attend meets or panels that tickle your fancy. However, this does bring a question. What's stopping us from branching out? Conventions are fun, but if you go to enough of them, the weekends at a hotel have a bit of a habit of blurring together. What is stopping us from being animal people elsewhere? Surely, we can do that. I mean, furry meets exist. In fact, I'm here right now at a furry-owned business. But why not something more than just fur meets? Something like a convention, but not at a hotel. And that's exactly what some furries did.
One thing I'm seeing is a lot of interest from people in like non-convention activities. Like, I want to do a cabin trip, I want to do a road trip, like a beach trip, versus like you saw your friends at conventions or at like local events and that was it.
I'm Foxpresso, and I want to take you on a tour into the wonderful world of furry events. From the woods, to the slopes, to the seas, and even our own backyard. Come along with me! Now, when you think of furry events that aren't cons, the first thing that comes to mind is camping. Camping cons, as they're so called, have a long history within the furry fandom. While the most well-known event was OklaCon, the longest-running furry camping con to this day is Camfire up in Canada. Granted, the Feral is more of a summer camp with cabins and programming. While that in itself is fun, some of us like to be a little more wild and traditional. Enter Campfire Tales in 2010. Held in Oregon, it thrives on self-sufficiency and has been described more as a furry Burning Man. But don't take my word for it. Let's speak to someone who's experienced it firsthand.
This was my first time attending. I first went in 2018, and that was a week before I went to Burning Man. It worked out that I could test out my tent and set up at CFT before I took it to Burning Man. I showed up Friday night. Campfire Tales is normally from Thursday until Monday, but I didn't want to take any time off from work. I set up my tent in the dark, and I kind of wanted to show that I could do it on my own, so I camped alone. The next year, I went with friends, and we all camped together, and this last year, 2022, Hornet and I made a theme camp together. He's really into Spice Girls, so we had a Spice Girls British pub. We took 2 canopies and turned them into this tent representation of a pub. We had a British flag and cheap party decorations. We had a cardboard cutout of the Queen. She was still alive at the time, so it was get a picture with Lizzie. Putting in the work of a theme camp was a lot of fun. So, unlike a regular convention, it's not in a hotel, it's in the woods. So there aren't hotel rooms, but tents instead. There's organization to it. They have a meal tent where they make a kitchen and serve meals that come with your registration. There's some other quasi-organized stuff that is put on partly through the convention and partly through individuals. And most of the events are run by the campers. Anyone can run a happening and anyone can join them. Many of the Campfire Tale organizers are burners as well. They bring some of that same Burning Man philosophy that you are building something together. You're not just going to this event and consuming it, you are making it. Everyone is there to share and give something. From something as big as a happening to stickers that you feel will brighten someone's day. Contribute to the experience we are all having. There are various levels of camping. What types of gear you'll need, you are literally camping. Bathrooms are taken care of, there are outhouses and porta potties. They provide meals for you, but plenty of people bring their own stuff. So just camping basics. If you've never been camping before, something to research. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there about it. But for your first time to Campfire Tales, I recommend going with friends who've already gone. So you can be part of a group or a theme camp or just people that you can learn from.
Campfire Tales happens every August. Given that it's both a camp in a national forest and a staple of the Pacific Northwestern furry community, it has very limited capacity. In order to attend, you will need to keep close tabs on social media, like any convention, and apply as soon as announced. From there, it's a lottery system as to whether or not you actually get to attend. If you've ever tried to book a room at MFF's Hyatt, it's basically a very similar experience. That said, if you don't get in, no worries. You can find a friend and ask to be a +1, or see about the wait list. Otherwise, there's other camping cons around the world. Look online to find one near you. Now, what if you want to enjoy the outdoors, but the summer heat is too much to suit in? If it's within your budget, you can hit the slopes. Furry Ski Weekend blazed the snow-covered trail for furry winter events. Of course, it's more than hurtling downhill screaming inside a smiling face. These winter events are also a weekend in a cozy cabin, as AAWOO in California is known for. Now, what is an AAWOO? Well, it's
Alpine Anthro Weekend of Outdoorsiness.
Lego Lightfox and Zantel are longtime members of the furry community, having helped out at several furry cons and even some Bay Area gatherings. AAWOO came to be in 2019 as a result of wanting a furry ski weekend gathering close to Northern California. In a way, it makes sense.
At the time, there was really only like one other ski event, and it was in Colorado. I remember mentioning offhand, like Tahoe is like across the US known as this really good ski area. There seems to be interest in furry skiing. We should like try to set up a furry event. We'd started just kind of like asking a few friends like, hey, do you want to go to Tahoe some weekend? And it quickly grew from like a couple of friends to like 8 or 10 people. And we were like, oh yeah, wow. And so even the first year we rented out, I think a much bigger cabin at least than I was expecting. And then kind of went from there to a couple of cabins. And we had a couple of years, we had a couple of cabins, and we've had a few years now where we've been able, luckily, to find really big cabins that can have like 25 or so people.
Our first year we had 14 people in a cozy little A-frame cabin in Tahoe City. That place was cool. You know, if we hadn't have grown, that would have been really nice to stay there.
We didn't really have anyone that like we knew that had like planned one of these before either. There's a lot that you kind of learn along the way. You know, if somebody wanted to start another one and like asked us, there's plenty I could say about like transportation. You really have to keep everything organized in a spreadsheet. Otherwise, it's really easy to lose track who's paid and who wanted to do this and who wanted to do that, especially because we, you know, do some different activities. And so it's like some people ski like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And like some people want to snowmobile when we had that. And like some people just want to hang out in the cabin. So trying to keep track of like making sure that everyone got, you know, the tickets that they were supposed to get and, you know, doesn't get left behind is a whole logistical thing too. We've had a couple of years where we like blew through, we had way more interest than spots. And that was like one of the years that we got 2 houses. We were lucky enough to be in a neighborhood where there was one within, you know, easy distance. It was still really cool, but I think the people were like, yeah, we'd much rather be in like one big cabin.
You could basically see the other house from the main house. You know, like it could have been next door, but the fact that we had split up the group like that was difficult.
But it gets harder the more you grow. We definitely do tell people, you know, but it's not like we're not as aggressive maybe as we would be if we had like a, you know, 1,000-person hotel that we could hold as many people as we wanted. I had somebody from Europe asking about this year. They're like, oh, I want to come next year. So we'll see if that materializes. That would definitely be our longest range attendee.
The best part about most furry cons and events is that every year is different. In AAWOO's case, this applies to the lodging. Instead of a hotel, Zantel and Lico opt for a cabin. While this brings a cozy and fun environment, it in itself comes with its own challenges.
A lot of it's a lot of back and forth. We have a Google Doc for like every year. The last couple of years, we've kind of narrowed it down because we found a couple of places we liked. We had our eye on the place we went this year for like 2 years, and like the dates didn't line up. Like I remember the document for this year said like in all caps it was like, get this place if you can get it, and we did, and that was really exciting. Almost easier for big events because there's not as many options. You don't have to look through like 100 listings because there's not 100 houses that can support, you know, 18 adults or whatever in Tahoe, but it does narrow it down, and it does, you know, put some pressure on like making sure that you can, you know, either adjust your dates or try to reserve ahead of time.
Our 3 top criteria is the capacity, the location, and the price. Not in any particular order, but you know, it does have to kind of meet all 3 of those before we can even consider it.
Are you close enough to the ski mountain that people can walk, or in North Tahoe they can take the shuttle? The other part is like, is there enough parking for everyone? We've had years where we've had like really restricted parking and we basically had to rent a van. It's harder when you have to manage a shuttle because then you have to worry about like, is everyone awake? Like, are people going to get mad that like the people who want to be on the mountain like first thing in the morning, right? They're like,
it's a lot of extra logistics, and it's a lot of, not a lot, but it is an extra expense. It's still doable, and practical in a lot of ways for a lot of circumstances. Certainly, if we don't have to do it, then we're not going to do it.
The other thing to look for too is like on Airbnb, a lot of the houses have like inflated max capacities where they'll be like, or they'll assume that some of the people are kids, so they'll be like, sleeps 24, sleeps 12 adults, and then there's a kid's bunk room that has like, 8 extra spots for kid-sized beds, and you're like, oh, that's not what we're looking for.
And then it's not even just how many people can it actually sleep, but, like how many beds are queen beds versus king beds versus bunk beds. We have couples, we have people who are going to want to sleep by themselves. Is it 18 people, but they're all in one room in bunk beds? Like that might not be ideal.
Our goal, I think, is to make an event that is really special for all of the attendees. Like we're not specifically aiming to be enormous or to have the most people. We just want to like really make this like perfect winter cabin, like camaraderie, like friends, cozy vibe.
From what I've seen, AAWOO has been a success. So much so that they're adding a sister event.
I basically grew up on boats. My parents were avid water skiers when they weren't snow skiing. And so just like I want to go on these big ski trips, I've been wanting to bring all of my friends on lakes and take them water skiing. And with the droughts and financials, we've not been able to do that. But this is the first year that the California lakes actually have water in them. And so we announced recently Summer AAWOO Aquatic Antro Weekend of Outdoorsiness. Summer AAWOO will be hosted on a 60-foot houseboat on Lake New Melones, just east of Stockton. It's at the end of July, and we'll have perfect weather, and we're just going to spend 3 nights on this houseboat. I'll be bringing my boat, and we have another person's boat, so we'll just be able to tow people around on tubes, and I'll be teaching people how to water ski. It's going to be a great time. Super excited about this.
AAWOO happens biannually. As of the making of this video, their website is being redone, so contact Xantel or Lico on Telegram via these QR codes or the link in the description in order to sign up or get more details on upcoming events. Now, what if you want to be a furry and on a more traditional vacation? Furry cruises have been going on annually in late fall for 15 years. Okay, technically 18 years, but we don't talk about that. These excursions are group bookings for a week-long sailing on existing cruise lines. Usually around 15 to 20 furries attend, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. You're spending an adventure in the open seas with other animals. I've always wanted to do this, but I've never had the chance. However, a good friend of mine, Metric Fox, has for many years. Here's what she has to say.
My name is Metric, and I'm Fox. So we did Mexican Riviera once, and then we did Bermuda, and then the world ended, and then we did Bermuda again, and then we did Alaska. I think, yeah, that's 4. This many. Then boyfriend, now husband, who have been doing them for much longer than this many, more like this many, and was like, hey Foxes, you should go on a really big boat with me. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? What could go wrong? Actually, I expected I would have hated it. I've been on cruises before without Ampadil friends, and I wasn't very fun. In general, cruises are kind of boring because it's just a big hotel with nothing to do but consume calories and be lazy. Doesn't have good internet, not a lot of like stimulation. I was very wrong about that, and that's why I went on 3 more. Every other itinerary we've done has had a lot of stops. And so there's a lot of like, hey, do you want to go see this place that we landed in? In Bermuda, we show up late at night and we stay there for like almost 2 whole days. You have a lot of time to actually go around the island and see some things and maybe rent a little electric go-kart, and that was neat. Oh man, fursuiting on the cruise is a trip. It's not like a con, obviously, because there's not like 3,000 furries on a 3,000 person boat. There's like 30. So fursuiting on your own is a thing you can do, but not generally the thing that we do. usually what'll happen is the organizer of the event, Keith, will be like, hey, so we're fursuiting tonight at 8 or something, I don't know. And then we all get together and we all go to the big meeting spot and we all go as a big pack. All the human-y people are like, oh, are those giant huggable amidals? And we're like, yes, that is us, you should give us hugs. It's a very different sort of adventure public suiting, and it's a super extra different adventure public suiting when like you do this enough days in a row on a 7-day voyage that people are like, oh gosh, I hope I run into the furries, that would be neat. The people that actually work the ship, the real G's, they love us to death. There's a lot to recommend the Furry Cruise that if you've only ever done cons, you probably wouldn't expect. It's expensive and has like a lot of sticker shock on the price tag of it, but if you consider that like it's 7 days, everything is taken care of, your food, they feed you 3 meals a day, they put you in a bed, they make the bed every day for free. There's pools and stuff and lots of fun to be had. There's also like an alcohol package, and that never goes to waste with anybody that has it. Like they move your luggage at least onto the boat and off if you pack early enough. Very easy to enjoy all the stuff on the boat, even if you don't feel like you can afford the more expensive stuff. Furry Cruise is not a thing that you would really expect because it's kind of like the opposite of a con. But we have 7 days to get together and there's planned dinners together every night, so there's a lot of chance to meet and like get to know people better. There's planned fursuiting outings, like a lot of people go on the same excursions. It's not like, oh no, I have 3.5 days to hang out with 150 friends. It's, I have 7 days to make 30 new ones. I still like cons a whole lot. Heck, I'm still going to them, but I never would have thought that it was that as good as it is. If you're even remotely curious, you should probably reach out. We're a pretty good group. Since it's a fairly small group, it's not that they're exclusive, it's just people don't go. And we could always stand to be bigger, and we could always stand to have more friends.
Furry cruise bookings for the year are usually open around March for the October or November sailing. The prices for a typical booking are per person, which does seem like a lot. However, as Matrick said, it's comparable to traveling to a furry con for the weekend when you factor in food, lodging, and everything else. That said, there are also ways you can save money. Furry Cruise will work with you to provide promotional offers and even find lower pricing for select rooms if you can't find what you're looking for online. However, do keep in mind that no matter what, a deposit is due upon booking to secure your spot. Think of it as a registration fee. Given all this travel, you're probably wondering, is there anything that can be a little bit closer to home? Well, yeah. There are events that you don't have to dedicate a weekend to go to, and they're typically for a few hours in an evening, but larger than fur meets and so unique that they attract furries from other states. Right behind where I'm standing, you used to be able to embark on a party boat through the waters of Lake Union and Lake Washington. In San Francisco, you can suit up for a ride on a cable car, do both over in Toronto, or join a dance in a variety of cities. Here, I would like to tell you a tale of two distinct groups that run nearly similar events. In Seattle, we are grateful to have such a robust furry community that we have a group that does major quarterly parties in the area called Fetch Northwest. 3 animals, Kit Fox, Flare Coyote, and Matthew Ebel, also known as Avian Invasion, among many others in the area, have helped make many unforgettable nights where furries have taken over the Emerald City that we call home. I've had the privilege to speak with these 3 and get to know a little bit more about what they do, so why not let them explain for themselves what it's like to run several of the Pacific Northwest's premier furry events.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Flare. Joined with Fetch back in like 2015, 2016, not when it was originally founded. Since I've joined, just kind of worked with the others, help with venue research, logistics, business licensing, finances, things like that. So we all kind of like do a little bit of everything.
I'm Kit Fox. I've been with Fetch for quite a while. Well, I do a lot of work with the venues and setting up events. I also kind of head up the social media side of things. So if you ever interact with anybody on Twitter and things like that, that's usually me on the back end, but not always. So don't blame me if something gets said wrong. I try and do a lot of the community outreach.
My name is Matthew. I also go as Bird1. I've only been involved with Fetch since like 2017, 2018, because I just had moved to the Seattle area around then. I mostly wrangle the DJs, do some design work for, the website and, badge art, poster art, that kind of thing. and generally make life more complicated for my esteemed partners here.
The origin of the name Fetch. It's because dogs like balls and they fetch them. No, that's literally why.
We live in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah. No.
Out east in Toronto, a husky brought adventures to the Canadian Seattle in what was known as Kerfluffle. I can't really do justice talking about it, so I'll let the host, AAWOO, explain.
Streetcar, rented at the zoo, raves under a bridge, a parkour gym where you could like jump around on all these different boxes. We rented out a pirate ship 3 times. We did a Hawaiian luau style event. We did the Pride Parade 3 times. We did 35 different events. Lots of variety, lots of different stuff back there.
AAWOO saw a gap in fun furry gatherings and took it upon himself to fill that void. How cool is that?
It started because Toronto had this monthly furry rave / dance / club night called Howl. And then they had a problem with their venue. They lost the venue and they couldn't do the event that particular month. And I had really been looking forward to it. So I thought to myself, man, this needs to happen. And so I had access to this like hacker space that I was a member of. And I just said to some friends, I'm like, hey, why don't you guys come over and we'll just do a party here? And it was kind of private, but like friends of friends of friends type thing. And I borrowed some sound gear from someone named Callie, and Nah and a few other people DJ'd. We needed a name, so somebody suggested Kerfluffle, and it stuck, and voila, we called it Kerfluffle. 50 people turn up, something like that. So fairly small, but you know, it was kind of a last minute thing. The next month, Howl still didn't have their venue back. And so I thought, well, that last one was super fun. What if I make this one public, and this time we'll do a rave under a bridge? I found a cool spot. I found a friend who had a generator and sound system and lights, and everything was like on target. Then it was raining, so we couldn't do it under the bridge that day. But through a different friend, I had connections with this guy who owned a parkour gym. And so we moved Kerfluffle to the parkour gym for the second time, the second Kerfluffle there, and all very last minute. And that one was open to the public and worked out great. Lots of people came. I think we had maybe 80 or 90 people coming to that second one. Everyone just really liked it.
Over here, Fetch has had a history fit for anything that has been homegrown here in Seattle. Start with something very small, simple, and fun, over time becoming something big.
So the short answer is it wasn't any of us. I'll share a little bit about the history of kind of like the party scene in Seattle, because that's important to know to understand where Fetch came from. There's a couple of groups before Fetch. There was Disaster Dogs, and then there was another event thrower, Tygon, who had a business he put together called For the Record. And they put together a lot of pretty great party scenes, usually DJ focused at bars or venues.
Yeah, Tygon did full on like warehouse.
Tygon
raves.
would get warehouses and throw raves, which was pretty great. The way it started kind of moving to Fetch is actually back when I got married in 2014. My husband and I wanted to throw a big party for our reception. And so we talked to Ezo, who was part of Disaster Dogs at the time. I basically said, Ezo, I want to do this basically event, kind of what y'all have been throwing. And so he put together something for my wedding reception, and it was great. It was a success. A lot of people came. DJs were actually able to perform and get a little bit of cash out of it, which was nice. And so we were like, let's keep doing this. And so Ezo, as a somewhat result of the wedding reception that he put together for my wedding, decided this was something he wanted to take solo and put together Fetch. And through similar parties, also at Highline, which is a Capitol Hill bar, and that's where the wedding reception was at as well. He put a lot together to throw these. And it wasn't until several years later that I acquired Fetch along with Flair and Matthew and Ratnip, and kind of took it from there. And I think started expanding it in some ways, but really the core of what we do and what Fetch is was really started before we jumped in.
Do you remember that boat I mentioned? That was what Fetch was known to do for the longest time before it got sold away in 2022. Who floated that idea of putting furries on a boat?
So that was part of Izo's dream for Fetch, as he wanted to throw grand parties. If you look at party venues around Seattle, boats are one of the things that's going to come up, along with like wedding venues and other types of things. And so Izo decided that like he wanted to throw a boat party. So he did like all the work and logistics with the Islander, which was like the older, smaller boat that we did. Did that for a couple years. We outgrew it by quite a lot. And then the Hayu emerged as a new party venue. Izo, in his final year with Fetch, was the one to decide to kind of like move to the Hayu. And that first year was kind of like the transition year to like Matthew, Kit, myself, and Ratnip when he was still with us. It went off super well. We decided to continue doing it until they kind of went under.
And we would like to continue doing it if another boat falls in the right price range, layout, capacity, etc., etc. Hopefully the Hayu will come back, but who knows?
And while Kerfluffle has done a lot of amazing stuff, it was that streetcar that caught my eye. How did AAWOO manage to rent out a piece of public transit for party animals?
So the streetcar, the first time, that was Kerfluffle 4. I knew from some past events I had seen that it was possible to rent a streetcar. It's about $3,000 to rent for 3 hours. Who's going to pay for this? Like, how many people can I realistically fit in this streetcar? 60, 70 at an absolute tops? You work it out and it works out to like $45, $50 a person. I'm like, who's going to pay $50 to ride a streetcar for 3 hours when they can ride it for $3 for as long as they want, normally? Is anyone actually going to pay for this? I don't think this is going to work. Someone else suggested to me, oh, well, why don't you do tiers, like a con, regular and sponsor and super sponsor. And so that way we could set the prices a little bit more lower so not everyone had to pay, the highest level. What really surprised me, it almost seems obvious in retrospect, but yes, people are happy to pay $45 to $50 to ride a streetcar for 3 hours because it's a really unique experience. And indeed, less than half an hour, it was sold out the first time. There's a lot of logistics involved there too. I mean, yeah, we had the streetcar for 3 hours, but there's no electricity on the streetcar that we can use. I had to purchase like really large batteries and an inverter and make sure everything would run, test it all, and check the like power levels and so on to make sure that we could actually run lights and sound for more than 3 hours without the batteries running out. It actually worked out great. We pretty much had a little bit of time beforehand while the streetcar was driving to where the meet point was to set up all the lights and sound. By the time it got there, I had other volunteers already there taking tickets and handing out sponsor badges and giving people wristbands. By the time the streetcar got there, everything was ready to go and everyone could just get on. I would say it went really well. Everyone had a really good time. There were a couple events that were like, they sounded really cool, but just weren't really practical. For example, Toronto has the CN Tower, which is, this big tower. And I actually called them up and I said, hey, like, what would it take to rent it out? And they would only rent me like about a quarter of it for $25,000. And it's just like, well, at this point, it's just not practical. Like, tickets would have to be like $250 per person. Like, no one's going to pay that. I had a friend who had a line on a guy who owned an abandoned prison. And I just thought it would be really cool to do a rave in a prison, but that never ended up happening either. And then there's a bunker just outside Ottawa called the Defen Bunker, and you can rent it. I just thought it'd be great to have a furry rave in a Cold War bunker.
Lead time from ideation to event can be anywhere from 8 months to like a year and a half, depending on how many logistics we have to do and what works for the venue. I'll take the ballroom as an example. That was about a year and 2 months in the making because that was like logistically the most challenging and ambitious thing we had done.
More so than the boat, even.
And more so than the boat. There are other venues, like take the Rendezvous, for example, right? Like we now have kind of like a pretty good relationship with them. We can make that work in as little as like 4 or 5 months. 3 months for us is the minimum because we want to give like the community like enough heads up with like ticket sales and like planning and
do
stuff.
some promotion.
Yeah, do some promotion stuff. New venues
tends to be a lot longer because there's negotiations, there's touring the venue. With venues we worked with before, it's a lot simpler and easier because they know what to expect. Like, we know what to expect.
I can't think of a single venue in the last 5 or 6 years where we've thrown an event there and they haven't been like, you are the
Please
best,
come back.
You are the best crowd ever.
Right, yeah.
We want to work with you again. Like, people love us. Like, furries tip well, they behave well, they don't destroy the place. They're fun for the staff because they get to see things, you know, that they don't normally see and get this energy that I think they don't normally get. Once we have had a event at a venue, it's usually 100 times easier to go back.
It really depends. Something like a rave under a bridge, it doesn't take a whole lot of planning. You pretty much just organize it with like DJs and equipment and so on a few weeks before. But other events, for example, the sailboat that we rented, I had to book those in February for sailings in September. While we're waiting for that, I'm sitting on that deposit, having paid it already and not gotten any ticket sales, so sometimes it hurts a bit. Other things like the Pride Parade, for example, you have to register sometimes the year before. Often there would be badge art, so I'd have to commission an artist. The artist we worked with the most was called Lappy. He did amazing work for Kerfluffle, and he needs lead time to do that as well, right? So there's a certain amount of planning that you have to do, usually anywhere from 1 to 6 months in advance.
What a lot of people appreciate is just having the space and time to like indulge in like their furry selves or like puppy selves, however they want to identify, right? And just having kind of like a safe space where it's like they're surrounded by that community and like just that community. I mean, people do like the DJs and the dancing and other stuff, right?
And to me, it's not just about making a safe space where people can be around other furries or other puppies. It's where you can come as you are within that community. Like, if you want to show up in a fursuit, you can show up and you can feel comfortable being who you are and you can feel welcome. And that's what's super important to me. And I know that's been really important all along in terms of Fetch and the party scene in Seattle as a whole.
I play shows in nightclubs and I'm sort of used to being an extrovert dealing with normal industry people, but there's a lot of furries who are intimidated by the thought of, you know, going out to a nightclub surrounded by people they don't know and whatnot, and being able to give them an opportunity to go to a real venue, an actual like downtown nightclub or the Hayou or the Georgetown Ballroom. It's not like a con where it's in a hotel ballroom. It's actually in a real bar out in downtown. You can give people who would normally not feel comfortable going into those spaces the opportunity to have a night on the town with people that are like them. I was so happy to see that Ezo had started something up like that here.
I don't know if I wish I knew this, but I was really pleasantly surprised to learn that if you put on a really cool event, people will come and they will put their wallet down and pay for it. You know, you can go to an entire 3-day furry con for $65. Why would anyone pay $100 to be on a sailboat for 4 hours? But it turns out, you know, if you make it a really unique experience and make it that's something people actually want to attend, then yeah, they'll happily pay $100. So that really opens the door for more events. Everything kind of worked out for the most part. I don't really have any regrets, so there's nothing I would really go back and change. I wish it didn't happen, but you know, what are you going to do, right? Can't change that. It was supposed to be an event in March, and that was already booked and paid for, and tickets had been sold, and art had been done. And then basically necessitated us to totally shut that one down. So everyone got their money back, refund. But yeah, everything shut down for a while. Up in Canada, it took us a lot longer to sort of go back to normal. It was a while before we felt we could do something safely. Back in 2021, I think we did some drive-in movie nights where, you know, the idea was stay in your car. It's socially distant, it's outdoors, it's relatively safe to do this. So we tried to sort of stay safe with regards to that kind of thing. There were a lot of planned things that never ended up happening because of coming along.
I wish I knew how hard it was to get venues to even return an email.
Yeah, it's like Tinder dating. It's up to 50 venues and like 40 ghost you. Of the remaining 10, like 8, you have like the proverbial first date where you have like some email back and forth, you know, talk about general terms and like logistics, and it falls through for whatever reason. You get rejected, They don't meet your like basic like table stakes requirements. It's just not reconcilable like pricing wise or whatever. The remaining 2 venues, you have the proverbial second date where you like do the venue tours and like start going over contracts, and maybe one falls through for whatever reason, like the layout can't provide changing space, for example.
They
like,
don't have air conditioning.
They don't have air conditioning, or they only do work nights, as you kind of learn. And then you hope that last one works, because otherwise then you're like back to the drawing board.
Yeah. I didn't think it would be that hard. We can legitimately approach a new venue and say, hey, we will fill this place easily. We will drink all of your booze, leave the place clean, and all of your bartenders will go home with a lot of tips. And they just don't return the email.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand that.
And there are some that do, but then they just are kind enough to tell you up front, like, we don't do private events, or like, your event type is not compatible
Or
with
we'll
what we want.
only do it on a Thursday or something like that. Like, come on.
When you have to find a venue that can do 300-400 people, it's a lot harder, but a lot more rewarding when it works.
Both Fetch Northwest and Kerfluffle have had a long history. While Fetch is still going live to this day, Kerfluffle is kind of on a bit of a break, with AAWOO moving out west. So, what does the future hold for these two?
First of all, I will say that both Fetch and Fur Life are amazing events, and I really respect and look up to the people who run them. I think that those events are larger than any Kerfluffle I've ever done. I think the largest Kerfluffle was maybe 210 people or so, and the last Fetch I went to was like, I think 500 people.
Flair keeps talking about the Gorge. I guess that's in like the 15-year plan, but
Okay, so the Gorge is a multiple tens of thousands person venue. You
Yeah.
can have music festivals there. They have like on-site camping and like the most beautiful like backdrop to their like main stage.
It's basically the biggest concert venue in the state of Washington.
But that's a pipe dream.
So it takes a lot more planning and a lot more skill to put on something of that scale. So props to those guys. Great work. Love your stuff.
I guess more realistically in short term, like honestly, a lot of the venues we worked with over COVID became non-existent. Right now, what we're trying to do is kind of establish new recurring venues.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the most immediate thing we're trying to do and kind of having challenges with. Medium term, what I kind of want to work up towards is filling out local theaters like the Neptune or like the Showbox or like the Paramount or something. If we can kind of do capacities kind of like the Georgetown Ballroom, which was like the largest capacity venue I'd done, regularly and like reliably, then like the next step up beyond that in terms of like capacity and like logistics and thing would be local theaters. And then you just go to like bigger local theaters.
I haven't decided if Kerfluffle is coming to Seattle yet. I did enjoy doing it. I'm in a new city now. There's other priorities now. I live with my partner now. But that isn't saying that it's a never type thing. It might happen when I feel like it.
We've been looking more towards quarterly events, but big ones, themed events, bigger venues that we can decorate or somehow make it more of a special occasion as opposed to a monthly meetup kind of thing. Not to denigrate the monthly meetups.
We need things like that. I would love it if someone would come and put together some sort of monthly recurring furry meets or gatherings at a bar or something.
There's an opportunity to work with other organizers, or maybe some collaboration or something. Keep your eyes open. Maybe it'll happen.
I've learned over the years that like the community wants both recurring events, but also kind of like special, less frequent events that are maybe like one-off or like themed or whatever.
Yeah, and not a full-on like con weekend commitment, just a one-nighter.
Somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to cater towards an adult audience, and we want to make sure that it's a space where everyone can feel welcome.
While Kerfluffle may be done for now, you can still check out past events online via photos or videos at kerfluffle.ca. Special thanks to Arctic Skywolf for recording a lot of these events for others to enjoy. Meanwhile, Fetch Northwest events happen on a quarterly basis around the Seattle area. To find out more, go to fetchnorthwest.com to see upcoming events and subscribe to their social media channels. Fetch events are quite popular, so it's best to snag a ticket as soon as they are announced. Personally, I love how furries have more than just conventions to meet in. Being able to be a giant fluffy animal out in the world with others is just amazing!
Furry is growing like crazy. Our cons are topping 13,000 attendees.
If there's nothing like this in your area, perhaps you and your friends may feel inspired to make one yourself.
Everything from just planning a group outing somewhere, or I don't know, a bowling meet, or going to the zoo together. Some cities don't even have that.
And I guess also kind of like that makes me think another thing is you don't have to start big. Like you can start with really small. Like we had Highland, it was really small. Like I think the first 50 to 100 people just came, and it was because of a wedding. And maybe it'll become a big thing, maybe it won't. And that's okay. In some ways that's better.
I think it's important to have the small things.
Mm-hmm.
It may be daunting.
I would say the biggest block you have is yourself.
Make sure that the people you have involved with it are passionate about it, where they're going to get enjoyment out of it. Like I think all of us have things that we really get enjoyment out of with Fetch. Like I know Matthew, he's like our DJ person, and he obviously really loves the music for obvious reasons. I really like the community social part. That's why I love doing the social media. Like I eat that stuff up. Blair loves logistics, and that's why we work really well together. And I think if we didn't get enjoyment out of that, if that's not something we would enjoy doing like in our personal lives, it wouldn't work.
It's not just me who has to do this, right? Like other people, there's room for everyone.
And we also could not do this without the help of many people who have talents we do not possess, whether that's through artwork, the audiovisual equipment, logistics, the decorating and stuff.
Yeah, we certainly cannot take credit for everything that goes on when you show up at an event. We have a lot of people who are really passionate to help us.
And there will be challenges to overcome.
Cover your both from a legal perspective, like make sure you're following like local laws and regulations. Sometimes you need licenses to do certain things. Sometimes you need to hire licensed people to do things, taxes, insurance. If you want to do this sustainably, you've got really two options. Form as a nonprofit or form as a for-profit, like an LLC or a C Corp. Unless you want to take on all that personal liability and responsibility, like those are your two paths. And you need to really understand what it takes to manage either a nonprofit or like an LLC. Yeah, as I've learned, like you can actually just call up like the city of Seattle, like tax department and be like, what do? They really like it when people come to them wanting to know how to make them happy, and they're very happy to work with you. Same thing with the IRS and the state of Washington. Turns out, like if you actually try and do the right thing by like governments, they're more than happy to help you do the right thing.
But if you make it and make it unique and fun, furries will come.
And it'd be great if they did. It doesn't take a whole lot. If you want to just do it, I think you should.
As is usually the case running a business, actually making the product is the easier and fun part.
Honestly, the community is there. No matter what city you're in, if there are furries there are people who are willing to do this.
Make sure you're engaged with the community you want to like provide for.
Yeah.
You're gonna need their support.
It has to be for them.
I'm Foxpresso, and I thank you for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, yap!